All right, everybody, thank you for being here. I'm just going to give a few quick ground rules before we get going here. The candidates, to start off, will be giving a 1.5-minute introduction of themselves. Please keep in mind this is not a debate. It's an interview, so no candidate can ask each other questions. Once a panel member asks you a question, you'll be given 1 minute to answer the question. I will not be rude in stopping you mid-sentence, but please be mindful of the time constraints. Panel members, you need to ask questions within the preview of which the office the candidate is seeking. And at the end of the question and answer portion, I will give you all an opportunity as candidates to make a final statement. Any questions? All right, with that being said, why don't we start off with opening statements from our candidates for Lieutenant Governor. And I'll start right here. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Eva Chase, and I'm originally from Pensacola, Florida. I'm a veteran of 11 years from the Air Force. My family has a history of veterans, Vietnam, World War II, and not Korea. I was too young to go. So I am a pioneer in one aspect because I see a positive vision for veterans in our great state of Nevada. That's why I'm running. I'm a first-time candidate. And I'm excited about the opportunity to be here to talk to you fine folks, share ideas, and let's take it from there. So let's enjoy ourselves.
Stavros?
What is the differentiation between lieutenant and governor?
Well, good afternoon. Thanks for having me. My name is Stavros Anthony. I'm a candidate for Lieutenant Governor. I'm honored to be here in front of this distinguished board. I'm a 29-year veteran of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. I retired as a police captain, had a absolutely great career. In 2009, I decided it was time to retire. I ran for the Las Vegas City Council. It was kind of a big deal because I hadn't been a Republican elected to the City Council in 15 years. So I ran and I won. I'm now in my third term on the Las Vegas City Council. I'm the mayor pro tem for the city of Las Vegas. It's been a real honor representing Ward 4. A couple of years ago, I decided to run for the Clark County Commission. There hadn't been a Republican elected to the Clark County Commission in 15 years, so I decided to run. I ran unopposed in the primary, and they stole the election from me. And I can say that. They actually stole the election. And if you want some information on that, I'd be glad to do it. And now I am decided to run for the Lieutenant Governor for the great state of Nevada. Real quickly, Lieutenant Governor is responsible for tourism, transportation, Homeland Security, small business advocacy, and as the president of the Senate. And I'm the only one running for Lieutenant Governor that has experience in every single one of those areas. So thank you very much. I'm Stavros Anthony.
Good afternoon. I'd like to thank the Veterans in Politics for having us all here today, because it takes a special breed of people to run for office. It takes a lot of energy, and I think we're all patriots. I am a father and a grandfather. My daughter's a policewoman. My son-in-law is a deputy sheriff. I have veterans throughout my family. My brother's a Vietnam vet, maybe was with the Seabees. My other brother was with the Corps of Engineers. Switch mics.
Hey, just switch mic. Just share yours with him, please.
For the moment, and we'll get it back to you.
Yeah.
Here we go. Check, check. Okay. Yeah, I could sound like Sinatra with this now. So anyway, yeah, my brother was in the Seabees. My other brother-in-law was at the Corps of Engineers in Vietnam and with Korea. My father was with Patton in the 3rd Armored Division, with all the wars that they were in: North Africa, France, Belgium, Holland, D-Day, Battle of the Bulge, D-Day +2. My 3 uncles were in World War II. My grandfather on my mother's side was in World War I. So I tried to join in '73, but all the Vietnam vets were coming back and they needed to make space for them. So I went back to college for business and for minor in music. I'm a Second Amendment advocate. I'm strong on the border. I believe in the Constitution of the United States, and I believe everyone who serves in office should be honest. The things that the Lieutenant Governor needs to know are transportation, hospitality, tourism, and entertainment. And I've spent the better part of 50 years in those, as well as CEO. manager on board of directors for profit nonprofit. So I think I'm eminently qualified, and I'm delighted to be here.
Thank you. Okay, now's the portion where the panel will be asking questions. Please make sure you say who you're asking the question to. It could be all three or one specific person. I think we will start with Frank. Frank, go right ahead.
Yeah, I'm Frank Friends. I'm a father and a family court activist and just generally involved in local politics. So you guys said that the governor is part of like safety and homeland security and things like that. I was wondering, would you be for or against a bill that if a place did not allow a law-abiding citizen to carry their firearm beyond that point, if they were victimized of something that occurred tragically where their firearm would have prevented it, should they be allowed to sue that company since they took that person's safety out of that person's hands and put it in the company's hands? Would the business be liable? Would you be up for something like that? All three.
All three. You can start.
That's a very good question, and my feeling on it is that businesses do have a right to run their businesses as they see fit. And I work on the Strip at a major resort, and unfortunately, we did have an event there a few years ago. We call it the event, and it happened quite near to where I live. And in that situation, there were firearms on the premises. And I'm not saying that that's the reason it happened, but I think there needs to be some type of a control to some degree without taking away Second Amendment rights. The safety of our patrons where I work are very important. We take it serious and we provide information for them. So that would have to be a case-by-case situation.
Just to clarify, what I'm saying is if the business created the situation where the person could not protect themselves, they would then be liable for whatever harm fell upon that person by not allowing them to carry their firearm with them, is kind of what I'm getting at.
So the business is not allowing them to carry the firearm, causing a less than safe situation for the patron. I get that. And I do work for a major corporation, and as we do not allow firearms where I work. So, I mean, we're like a big casino business here in Las Vegas.
The question is pretty simple.
Yeah.
Would you support the right of that person to sue if harm befell them?
Well, everyone has the right to sue in this country, so yes, they could.
Mr. Anthony?
First of all, I'm a big proponent of the Second Amendment, always have been. Second of all, anybody can sue anything, anybody for anything. And third of all, if somebody has been harmed by the actions of another, I would support the lawsuit and see what the courts have to say about it. Absolutely.
First of all, I believe everybody should be able to carry a gun. That way the bad guys will only last about 10 seconds, if that, and all the good would prevail. As far as if you're in an organization that's supposed to have security that won't allow you to carry a firearm to protect yourself and they were negligent, absolutely. And as we know, as Stavros said, lawyers go for deep pockets, so they look for the deepest pocket and they sue everybody. And the courts are supposed to adjudicate on a democratic, honest, and honorable situation. But as we know, we've got a challenge in the courts to get good people. So there's in a simple answer, if you're negligent and you don't take care of your people and you're not letting them defend themselves, then you're opening yourself up to liability.
Okay, next question.
Rob Lauer, former U.S. Army Military Police. My question is to Stavros Anthony. There's, prior to this, and certainly in our state right now, there's a lot of controversy over whether there were issues with the election. And I would really like you to explain what happened to you so everyone knows what happened and that there are issues that need to be adjudicated.
Thank you. I love talking about this. So first of all, we have to look at the election system that the Democrats in this state put together, the Democrat governor and the Democrat legislature. And you don't have to take my word for it. You can quote Jimmy Carter, our former president. He impaneled a committee, and the committee said the best way to cheat in an election is mail-in ballots and ballot harvesting and no voter ID. So you can take his word for it. So you look at the system that we have in Nevada, all mail-in ballots, ballot harvesting, no ID, same-day registration, automatic registration at DMV, and on and on and on. These systems are put in place in order to cheat. That is my opinion. And what happened to me was when I woke up on the day after the election, I was up 1,700 votes. I ended up losing by 10 votes because all the mail-in ballots that came in 10 days later, and we have seen studies today that show every time mail-in ballots come in after election, they always support the Democrat. I got a lot more I can tell you on that, but it's time. Thank you.
Next question, please, from our panel.
Actually, do I answer that?
Was that question directed towards?
Oh, it was just Stavros. I'm sorry.
Yeah, just Stavros. Okay.
I'm a mic hog. What
Next
can I tell
question,
you?
we'll go to Stephanie. Stephanie's next. Go ahead, Stephanie.
This is for all of you. We lost a lot of our small businesses during COVID and the shutdowns and all of that. What would you do to bring those businesses back and make sure that we don't ever shut them down again?
What I would do is I would put into place programs that could help restart small businesses, because the mom and pop businesses are the backbone of the American economy, just like the enlisted man or the enlisted woman is the backbone of the military. So I believe we should have programs that make it easier for small businesses to get started, bring in some small business loans and grants, and make it possible for these businesses to get back going again, because not all businesses are big as mine is. So I think that would be the first start.
Great question. First of all, we have to start with making sure that the legislature takes away all the powers of the governor to ever do this again. Can't have this happen again to our small businesses. So if you just look at my track record on the Las Vegas City Council, when I first came on 12 years ago, we went through all the business licensing, and a lot of businesses had to get 2-3 different business licenses. I sponsored an ordinance that cut that in half, where only one license was needed by a small business, so saving them lots of money. Again, you look at my track record, I've reduced fees, I've reduced licensing, I've reduced regulations on the Las Vegas City Council. When I first started, everything took a long time to get a business license. Now you can do it all online. Even plans check for developers, that used to take 4 or 5 months at the city. Now it takes about 30 days to get it. So you can look at my track record and know that I am very much in favor of supporting small businesses, because they're the backbone of this society. Not the big casinos, it's the small businesses. Thank you.
Well, the views of the Strip during COVID were nothing more than eerie, with no humans in sight. We've had a lot of fallout. A lot of people still aren't back to work. We have a unique state in that most of its tourism, 52% of the state's revenue, comes in from those shiny buildings here on the Strip. And over $1 billion worth of live entertainment tax goes into the coffers, and I don't see any of that coming back in the form of scholarships, grants, low or no interest loans. Basically, we need to attract people back to Las Vegas and back to Reno and back to Tahoe. We got to put the sizzle back on the steak, and that is going to be done by shining a spotlight again and again. And I just sent off a letter to Tom Hanks. He's doing the new Elvis movie, and they're doing a premiere in Cannes. I said, well, why don't we do another premiere at the International, the site of probably Elvis's most greatest accomplishment, 636 sold-out shows in a row, never even been close. So that would be a global newsworthy item that will shine the light again and help bring people back and put people back to work. And that's a minute and a half isn't enough to address it, but I'm sure we'll get a chance to talk more about it. Thank you very much.
Okay, next question from our panel. Go ahead, sir.
This is for all three candidates. What would you do about bringing tourism to the northern part of the state? We've got a great state. It's wide open. There's tons of room for all kinds of things, including skiing, hiking, ATVing, all of those great things. What would you do to help bring that? You do have, I believe, 4 BDRs that you can bring forward. Describe one of the BDRs that you would bring forward to help the northern part of the state. Thank you.
Start here. Go ahead.
You're addressing the northern part of the state? The northern part of the state is almost like the forgotten family member when it comes to Nevada. Reno in itself, Carson City and other areas in that area, is really big for outdoor activities, whether it's skiing or hiking or hunting or whatever it is that you like to do. You could center on that part and have people set up some type of a program where people can come and enjoy the outdoors. Plus, they have some good entertainment that comes up there as well. We might have, I've seen KC and the Sunshine Band here in Las Vegas, but I bet they've been to Reno too. So you can have the best of both worlds in northern Nevada.
Thank you.
So, great question, because the Lieutenant Governor is the chairman of the Tourism Commission. So again, I'll give you my experiences. When I came on the Las Vegas City Council 12 years ago, you did not go to downtown Las Vegas. It was a dangerous place. Tourists didn't go down there. Residents didn't go down there. Today, 12 years later, working with a great team that included Oscar Goodman, downtown is the place to be. So I know how to turn around areas that deal with tourism, and I plan on doing that in the entire state. And the way you do that is you go to Elko and Ely and these other places and talk to the tourist industry there, whether it's a casino or whether it's a little mom and pop operation, and find out from them what they need from the state or what's the state doing to impede their particular businesses. So I can't tell you what those BDRs would be if they were involved in tourism, but the first thing I would do is travel all over the state and talk to people in the tourism industry and find out what they need from the state. And then the Tourism Commission, which I would chair, those are the things that we would be talking about, is how can we help tourism not only in Las Vegas and Reno, but all over the entire state of Nevada.
Well, this is one that's close to my heart because if you know anything about me, you know I'm an outdoorsman. I have horses and I love to ride, and I believe in preserving our economy or our environment. And I would first require, when we give tax dollars to the local area tourism boards, that some of that is earmarked for campaigns to reach out and bring people in the state for fly fishing, for all of the different outdoor activities that we have here. We have some other issues with BLM and the U.S. Forest Service that kind of give us a black eye. You know, 60 or so cattle got through some fence last month, and they sent up a helicopter with a sniper and killed them all. So I think with that and the BLM issue we had here with grazing, you know, this is Nevada. I know the federal government owns a lot of this land, but this is our state. And you don't come in here, you don't slaughter animals, and you don't do things that are going to give us a black eye. We had a black eye on Route 66 festival. A lot of that money, or all that money, never got to the victims of the families. We had money come in for other things, so we have to find out where all this money's going, because we know it's not getting to where it needs to be, and it needs to be in tourism, and it needs to be in, you know, showing off other than gambling.
Gotcha.
Entities. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's now go to Stephen, who has a question.
Good afternoon. Stephen Fortune, United States Air Force, Security Police. And I just want to keep pace here with the recreation side, and part of that with Lieutenant Governor is the advisory board on the outdoor recreation. And large part of that outdoor recreation here is our lakes here in Nevada. And I know with our reservoir here with Lake Mead, the water levels, we all know the water levels have drastically decreased in there. A lot of these boaters, such as myself, we try to launch the boats out of here, out of the marinas. We couldn't even launch out of a lot of these marinas here. And I do understand we do share it with Arizona as well. But with the Colorado River and Lake Mead down 34%, and it's pretty much hovering around the lowest level since the Hoover Dam was constructed on it. In this year, it's projected that the Lake Mead will experience its first federally declared water shortage. And so what will be the plans to help conserve and protect Nevada's water, since our population's only continually to grow here in the state? And I can remember when I first came to the state back in '99, that water was right up there I remember walking across the Hoover Dam, and that water was right up there to the top. And of course, just over the course of all these years here since then, it's just gone down and gone down. And if it goes below a certain amount, I think it's like 950 feet, the generators aren't going to be support enough power here for the state. So I just wanted to see what measures you put in place to conserve with the water here for the
all three candidates?
Yes,
okay,
all three candidates.
Sure.
Thank you.
Start.
Thank you.
Yep.
This question is dear to my heart because being an environmentalist, I talk about this every day when I go to work. What we need to do, short of getting more rain, which is difficult, we need to find a way to conserve the water we have. And if we are getting our water from the Colorado River, maybe we can find ways to increase the flow into Lake Mead. Maybe there could be ways that you could divert in a nice environmental way to get the water over here, where you don't have to worry about being able to get out on your boat and have a good day on the river or at the lake. And so the other thing is, if we could just, I know this is not environmental time at the moment, we're talking about veterans, but let's try a little more green energy. Maybe we'll save some water along the way. Just an idea. Thanks.
Well, I want to preface this by saying that I've been in politics for 2 months. But having been president and CEO of my own company since '85, it takes me about 24 hours to research a subject. So although I may not know everything to do with water in Nevada, and it may not be the area of the lieutenant governor can shine a light because he has the ability to call a press conference. So whether it's water or whether it's education or voter fraud, I plan on being a spokesman for the people, all the people who live in Nevada. So when you talk to water, I was just out at Lake Mead with my brother-in-law and sister for their 55th anniversary. I saw it was down about 130 feet. And you're right, it's been going down. And we don't know where the water started going during the Obama administration, but I plan to research all of the bills that were passed and who's taking water from there. And you're right, we have a limited supply of water on Earth, so we do need to be mindful of conservation efforts. We need to research that, but not hurt our businesses by giving them undue regulations like they're doing in California with the electric semi-trucks that don't even exist, but they're supposed to have them by 2030. So I'm a business broker, and I've been a mergers and acquisitions and business consultant, and we need to make sure our businesses thrive, and then through that, we can afford to make the changes to conserve and further protect our water supply.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stavros?
So first of all, the good news is that we've been doing an excellent job the last 20 years in conservation. So 99% of the water that goes down the drain goes to the water treatment plant, gets treated, goes back out to Lake Mead, gets treated again, and goes back down your tap. So we've done a great job there. As far as outdoor waste of water, we've done a great job there. Most of the new development has been Zero-scape. We now have a law in place to get rid of unnecessary grass in some of our master plan communities like Summerlin, which is a good thing. We don't need that kind of grass there. So in actuality, we're using less water per capita per person today than we were 2 years ago. So that's great. Also, we built this pipe underneath Lake Mead so we can draw water from underneath it. So we're in good shape for the next 60 years when it comes to water. Obviously, we need to rely on Mother Nature. We need snow to show up in the Colorado Rockies to get into the river. And it's not because of this climate change stuff that we talk about. It's just the way nature works. So we have these compacts with other states. We're going to keep working on it, and I believe snow's coming. And there are some other things we can do. I've heard people talk about putting in a pipeline from the Mississippi River to the lakes out here when the Mississippi River floods. I've heard about desalination. So I think I have a lot of trust in the private sector to come up with ways that they can make money in getting us more water, which is what our system is all about.
Going to go
Thanks.
on the end. Gentleman on the end has a question. Can you get him a microphone, please?
I have a quick follow-up question, if that would be okay.
Okay, quick follow-up, and then we'll go to the gentleman on the end.
Mr. Chair, you said the main thing that you said was you would increase the amount of water in the Colorado River. How would you do that?
The way I would increase the water in the Colorado River, with respect to my other candidates up here, I am a believer in climate change and the use of fossil fuels. And if you do not have some type of sustainable energy that doesn't harm our ecosystem and the heating of our planet, then we could have possibly a better chance of more snow. We have been using fossil fuels since the early 1900s. And there's a slow drift towards green energy, but there's a lot of resistance and a lot of pushback against change. I'm not saying do it overnight, but if we want more water in Lake Mead, we have to find a way to increase the water and the snow in the Colorado River. It won't happen overnight, but let's try another alternative, some green energy instead. That's all I'm suggesting. The way we're going now, it isn't working. It isn't working, try something else.
Mr. Anthony? Was that a follow-up for just her or for everyone? I apologize. Okay, we have one more follow-up.
I just want one follow-up because lithium is a big issue here in Nevada. We mine it. However, the question for you is regarding from an environmental side, is lithium a sustainable source long-term to our solution to replace fossil fuels with lithium? Is that a sustainable plan?
It can be if it is mined in a safe environmental way. Some of you folks may not be aware of the oil sands up in Canada, and they have these pools of wastewater. Once they go in, they take all the vegetation out, they take the oil from underneath the sand, and they put the vegetation back. Now this disrupts the wildlife that live there, but it does something else. They have these waste pools, and there are some waterfowl, some ducks. Great place to land and relax. They all died because of the contaminants. There is a way.
I'm sorry, let me be more clear.
Yeah.
Do we have enough lithium to sustain us into the future?
Yeah.
How much do we have? How long do we have of lithium to replace gas and put them in electric cars and other devices? How much lithium do we have to sustain that?
Well, honestly, I do not know the amount of lithium that we have in Nevada, but I do know that if lithium is a way to replace the gas and other fossil fuels, we should be trying to get it as quickly as possible in a safe, manageable way to maintain environmental integrity.
One more follow-up question, and then we will move on. Go ahead.
Do you know how lithium-ion batteries are mined?
From what I understand, you can correct me if I am wrong, I understand that the mining occurs out in the more rural areas, and I don't believe it's strip mining. I believe it's like surface mining going down. I don't know all the details on how the mining of the lithium happens. I'm not going to stand here and tell you I know that.
You should know all the details of how lithium is mined because it is just as harmful for the environment as fossil fuels, if not more. And to add to that, there is not enough lithium to transfer everybody into an electric car and to sustain your proposition. And if you are not knowledgeable on that instance, you should not have something to say about it.
I appreciate your comment, and I apologize if I don't have all those answers on that particular subject, but I do know one thing. I'm a learned individual. I can get up to speed on virtually anything, and I have a passion to protect the environment, and at the same time protect our economy and the state. What we have to do, we just can't go one way or the other way. We have to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time.
As part of the next generation, I thoroughly appreciate that, and I applaud you for being able to admit that. But as somebody running for lieutenant governor of my state, I want them to be knowledgeable of these topics, and I want them to know what they're talking about when they propose these situations. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Does
Thank
anybody?
you for that.
Is there another follow-up?
One quick follow-up on
Okay.
that. Do you realize that if everybody in Los Angeles had an electric car, that there is no infrastructure to charge the cars? It's not there. It doesn't exist. So if everybody in Los Angeles, just the Los Angeles area, had an electric car, it would overload PG&E, and there's no transformers, wires, power supply enough to even charge the cars.
I see your point, and you bring up a valid point, because by the year 2025, they were supposed to have electric cars in California. When Jerry Brown was governor there, he kind of put that into place. Now, in order to do that successfully, you have to have an infrastructure. You have to have a plan in order to execute that plan. If you don't have the plan to do it, you can't implement it successfully. So therefore, the plan has to already be in place to get it done before you even bring the plan into place. So you bring up a good point.
Okay. Next topic. Go ahead.
Did you want me to bring up another follow-up? No.
No, thank you.
Regarding lithium, okay, I'd like to switch gears to Homeland Security, if you don't mind. I'm a retired police lieutenant from North Las Vegas. Did 25 years and spent more than half of my career as a supervisor, a sergeant and a lieutenant. And in our city, unlike other cities, the watch commander can be a sergeant or a lieutenant. Most cities, you have to be lieutenant or higher. So I have a lot of experience with running the entire city by myself all night, basically. On 1 October, I was the watch commander for North Las Vegas. I was responsible to send out the strike teams and to coordinate with dispatch and SWAT and everyone that you could possibly imagine. And so my question is, with regard to Homeland Security, it's gotten better, but back in those days, there was a serious disconnect. As a watch commander of a city, an entire city, I don't really have access to Homeland Security. I don't really have that communication. It's done at the higher levels, which, you know, and I'm not being cynical, but the captains and the assistant chiefs and the deputy chiefs and chiefs, they're all at home. You know, we're working the city. And then afterwards, it's gotten a little bit better. And with regard to access to the equipment that Homeland Security has, there's also a disconnect. And I know there's pushback from the public because they don't like military-looking vehicles and they don't like, you know, certain rifles and you know, grenade launchers and things like that. But I can assure you that the people that we're fighting against has more equipment than we do. And the public doesn't understand that. So my question is, as Lieutenant Governor, and I'll start with Ms. Chase, as Lieutenant Governor, this is all for all three of you, what do you think you could do specifically to improve the disconnect and the access that the average, you know, police officers have to Homeland Security in an active shooter situation or in a you know, possibility of a terrorist situation in Las Vegas, pretty big. Lots of people, one spot, one night, so it's not that far of a thought that may happen. And also, what would you do specifically to try to get us to access at least some of their communication and some of their hardware equipment?
Is that a question for all three? Okay.
Started with Ms. Chase for all three.
Yep.
That question leads right into communication. Homeland Security, the local police department, the State Highway Patrol, any law enforcement agency in Nevada, they all need to be on the same page. If something is happening somewhere like a mass shooting, then all agencies need to be aware at that moment. Maybe you could use certain emergency codes, or maybe you could also ensure that the leaders, the men in charge or women in charge of all these organizations are meeting regularly and making sure they're all on the same page. So that's what needs to be done. Communication between all law enforcement.
Mr. Anthony.
Would I be able to clarify before we move on? Because that wasn't exactly what I was asking. So we had excellent communication with NHP. They cleared the entire highway so that the strike teams could get from the different cities. We had good communication with Metro. I had 3 different Metro dispatchers on 3 different channels directly communicating with us, and the communication was not great. The boots on the ground communication was not that great, and we worked on that, and we're improving that. And so as far as one another, the job got done probably as well as it could have been for what we had at the time. What I'm asking is, how do you specifically plan to help us with the communication with Homeland Security? Because they have all the toys, they have all the good stuff, they have all the communication equipment, and how could you bridge that gap? Because if only special units and bosses have access to Homeland Security, when something like that goes down, we're the only ones there. So we need to be able to access that. I hope I clarified it, kind of.
That did. And what needs to be done is there needs to be an alignment, an agreement that Homeland Security will provide anything and everything to all necessary levels, so there won't be nothing falling through a crack. If something happens that there's not complete coverage. If that means providing more weapons, fine. If it means more communication, that's fine. But whatever it takes to get the job done, for you to do your job easier, the bosses have to do their job to make your job easier. This is what we address every day where I work. So hopefully that answers your question. I try.
Well, first of all, thanks for your service. I appreciate that. So we do surveys at the City of Las Vegas, and I'm sure it's the same in every single community. The number one priority with residents of that community is public safety, every single time. And that's going to be my top priority as your Lieutenant Governor, because that's my background, 29 years at Metro. So I am going to make it my mission during my first term to travel all over the state and meet with every single sheriff, every single police chief, every single fire chief, corrections officers, police officers, and find out what they need. What kind of training do they need? What equipment do they need? And I'll guarantee you, once I get all that together, that's going to be one of my BDRs, is getting the money to support our police and fire and corrections officers. That's going to be my number one job, to make sure I do that. So you're going to have your biggest cheerleader for public safety in the state of Nevada, as far as I'm concerned. And I can talk the lingo. I understand how to talk to all these men and women. So I will be doing that.
Well, this is a great question. And having been an entrepreneur pretty much my whole life, I've not only learned to see the big picture, because if you don't see the big picture, it can be very expensive, but also see the parts that make up the whole. Maybe that's why I was such a good troubleshooter and turnaround specialist in the business brokerage and the mergers scenario, because I'd have to go in and dissect right down to the last spoon or pencil or truck. Communication in the heat of the moment needs to be real time, and it needs to be coordinated in a manner where you can know what they're doing in SWAT, and SWAT needs to know and what they're doing with Homeland Security, and if the FBI's on site and whoever's else on site. And I realize they need to have buffers in between those activities to make sure things don't bleed inappropriately. But there needs to be hubs set up in the communication process whereby a commander can be talking to another person and they realize they need to gear these people into that. They can do real-time updating on what's going on, who's where, because we all saw that terrible thing from Route 66. And, you know, I have a lot of questions about what went on there, too. I was back in Virginia at the time building a barn with my fiance, and I saw it on television, and they showed pictures of these guns laying around a hotel room, but there was no spent brass. If he had 1,000 rounds he shot off, there should be some spent brass. Am I the only one that has a question there? So, you know, there's a lot of questions, and they need to be done, and we need to be done tactfully. But yes, I have questions, and and I love the infrastructure, and I love planning and figuring out what's wrong with it. Thank you.
For those of you, by the way, that are streaming online right now that have questions, we are here at the Ahern Hotel. We are speaking to 3 candidates that are running for Nevada Lieutenant Governor. This event run by Veterans in Politics, for those of you that are streaming and watching this live online right now. Let me go back to the panel now. Who would like to ask the next question? Go ahead, Frank.
So you guys are talking about tourism and public safety and things like that, and that's good, because that brings up my next question for you. To bring more tourism here and have more public safety, there are programs set in place to legalize and regulate sex work. It helps the workers. It gets rid of drugs, gets rid of a lot of domestic violence, things like that. Would that be something you would put forth, look into the safety that it would bring? It brings down STDs, it brings down rape, it brings down domestic violence by just regulating it and making it legal, and it clears up a lot of police time. All 3 of you.
Yep. Go ahead.
Yes, I would. And here's the reason why. If it's regulated in a safe manner, I don't want to shock anybody here, but this is Las Vegas. And this business is around. So why not make it to where the participants in this particular business are routinely checked to eliminate any transmission of any STDs? Also, too, if it is a legal business, you could tax it, raising revenue for the state. Now, I understand the moral issue of this. I'm looking at it from the economic standpoint, the safety standpoint, and tourism for Vegas and Nevada.
Mr. Anthony?
Well, you know, this is a subject that's going to have a lot of ladies in the community not happy about it and a lot happy about it, and you can't really please all the people all the time with this subject. But I toured Australia with the Rat Pack, and they legalized prostitution in Sydney and parts of Australia, and it's run by the state. And I actually happened to meet the head of the sex workers union, and we and a couple of other fellows took a ride up the coast. She had to consult with a company who wanted to open a brothel in Wollongong, which, if you know Wollongong, it's all about mining up there. The ore ships come in and fill up. There was 20 ore ships waiting out off the coast. And so it's unionized. It was run by the state. And though I've been told a lot, the women love what they do. And the men love it, and you're right, it does cut down on violence against women, exploitation of children, marital problems, and so it's about time, I think, we take a look at that. And just one quick thing, of the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is not about the bureaucrats doing what makes them happy. It's about them doing what makes all of us happy. And if that includes legalized prostitution, it includes marijuana, God bless them.
Mr. Anthony, go ahead.
So that's an interesting question because back in the day, I was the captain of Vice Narcotics. So I saw the devastation from pimps and, prostitute trick rolls and sex trafficking, and it was. I focused a lot on juvenile prostitution because I was trying to stop that. On the other side, though, if you travel around the state like I've been doing for the last 6 months, there's brothels all over the state of Nevada, and they're doing fine. They're not bothering anybody. So I don't have an answer for you on that. I think that's something that we should have a discussion over. Tell you the truth, when it was time, when the ballot came up to legalize marijuana, I was completely against it. Because back in the day, I used to, as a police officer, I used to arrest people for a roach. It was a felony back then, so I was against it. Today, though, the marijuana industry is doing a phenomenal job as far as regulating themselves and making sure they're good professional businesses. So, Frank, I'd be glad to have a discussion on the topic, but I don't know if I would support legalizing it.
It is interesting. I'll just add, we see these vehicles on the strip, girls direct to you. I think it confuses tourists a little bit. I just wanted to add that. I'm sorry. We all know what I'm talking about. And the people pass out those cards, although I don't think they're doing those anymore, right? I don't know. But, they still are? Okay. I don't go to the strip very much. Anyway, I just wanted to add that. It's confusing for people. That's all I'm saying. Go ahead, sir.
My question is directed for Mr. Anthony. This goes back a ways, but do you remember Kevin McMahill?
Yeah, I know Kevin McMahill.
Okay. I have a paper here where he had stopped somebody and said, "Show me your snatch and give you your wine back." And you had signed and asked that he be terminated. Do you remember that?
I actually don't remember it, but I've seen the document that you're talking about. Somebody sent it to me.
Oh, okay.
So just to clarify, I really don't remember. I mean, this was 25 years ago, maybe. I don't remember how long ago it was, but I've supervised in my capacity thousands of people.
Gotcha.
So I don't remember that specific incident, but according to the document that I saw, what it says is that a complaint was filed against Kevin McMahill. An investigation was completed by Internal Affairs, so I didn't do the investigation. Apparently he was on my squad, even though I don't remember that. And then the investigation, according to that document, says it came back sustained. And then based on that, I recommended termination, and then it was sent up the chain of command. But I don't decide whether somebody's terminated or not. It has to go above me. So that's what the document says.
Understood.
So I didn't do the investigation, and I didn't actually, I don't even know what happened to him based on that document, to tell you the truth.
Okay.
So that's basically my knowledge of it, is just reading that particular document.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Next question from a panel member. Go right ahead.
A follow-up, could you, knowing that now, or maybe if you know him currently, could you speak on his character at all, or no?
Well, he's the undersheriff, or he was the undersheriff for the one of the largest police departments in the country. I mean, the undersheriff is the one that really runs the day-to-day operations of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. I've been on the fiscal affairs for Metro for the last 12 years. I was appointed when I first was elected, and we crossed paths while he was at the higher rank, and I think he's doing a phenomenal job. He did a phenomenal job as undersheriff. I'll let the voters decide whether he should be the sheriff, but I think he's done a great job as undersheriff.
All right, let's go to Stephanie next with a question.
This is for all three of you. What do you see as the worst problem with the past lieutenant governors? What are their shortfalls? What would you do different?
Go ahead.
I believe that, Lieutenant Governor, you have to be ready to serve. You're second in command. At a moment's notice, you've got to step up. And I think that sometimes Lieutenant Governors kind of don't understand the responsibility that they're for and what they're facing, and their responsibility as the other candidates mentioned the tourism and other things. They have their own responsibilities, but they got to be ready to step up to be the governor of Nevada. And if they're not ready to be the governor of Nevada, then they got to step up and get it together because they're in that office.
I think the biggest disappointment is that when I tell people I am a candidate for lieutenant governor, what's the first thing they ask me? What does a lieutenant governor do? I mean, and I actually, when I decided I was going to continue my public service and I looked at this position, there was, I think back in November, there was only one or two people that on the Republican side that were interested in lieutenant governor. So I didn't know what the lieutenant governor did. So I actually looked it up. I looked up the statute, and it, like we've mentioned, tourism, transportation, homeland security, small business advocacy, president of the Senate. And I have experiences in every single one of those areas. And what I'm going to do as lieutenant governor, people are going to know what a lieutenant governor does, because I'm going to go around and tell everybody, especially the tourism industry, especially transportation. So I'm going to make sure that people know who the second highest constitutional position is in the state of Nevada and what that person does and how the state of Nevada can support those areas. So, and most people probably don't know who the current lieutenant governor is. So that's going to be my job, is to make sure people understand what a lieutenant governor does and how I can support their particular industries.
Thank you. Well, I was talking to Lorraine Hunt a couple of weeks ago, asking for her counsel on running for lieutenant governor. And by the end of the conversation, she came around to the point where, well, okay, you follow your heart and do it. But the other 10 minutes were like, what are you, crazy? You know, don't spend any of your own money. She said during Sandoval, the lieutenant governor's position was dumbed down a lot. Okay, so, you know, it's almost to the point where they give you a shiny little sash and a bouquet of roses and you just wait for the governor to leave town before you do anything. But that's not the case. Although it is those four areas, I think the lieutenant governor also needs to be the spokesman for the state. It's almost like the governor has a lot of hard work he does and the lieutenant governor's a part-time job. So he needs to be the conduit to raise the issues that are of the day that need addressing, even if they're not in his job description. As far as running boards of directors, I've done it for 35 years. I can be president of the Senate, parliamentary procedure, no problem. Thank you.
I think we have time for a few more questions and then closing statements. Go ahead.
Rob Lauer. So as the president of the Senate, you may have to be deciding vote on critical issues and on legislation. So I'd like to ask whether you support biological boys and girls sports, and should that be allowed or banned in the state of Nevada?
All three.
All three.
Yes. Good question.
Your question is very good, and I'm glad you asked. My answer would be yes, and this is the reason why. I wasn't going to say this today, but now that the subject kind of gone this way, I'm a transgender woman, been so for 3 years, perfectly happy, everything is legal. I'm now a real woman, surgeries, everything. Now I know some people say, oh, that's a taboo subject, but to go back to your question, yes. Because every child should be who they are. Whether you like it or not everybody is from the same cookie cutter. And there are some kids out there, whether they're a boy or a girl, they may not be athletically inclined as others who participate in their sport, but they should be able to do so.
Just so I understand the question, are you saying, is the question, if you're born a man, transitioned into a woman, should you be allowed to compete with other women? Is that the specific question you're asking?
Regardless of whether they transition or not, if they're born a biological male, should they be able to compete in sports with women that are biological women?
So you say yes. Okay, fair enough. Mr. Anthony?
Well, first of all, I'm a constitutional conservative, so those are going to be my guiding principles. You can look up my record on the 12 years on Las Vegas City Council. I am a constitutional conservative, and to specifically answer your question, yes, I would support a ban of men participating in women's sports and the other way around. Absolutely, that's not fair. It doesn't make sense to me. So I would absolutely support legislation that would do away with that.
Certainly not an easy question to answer. I'm also, I come from the school of hard knocks. My father was Sicilian, my mother was Irish, and I really have a problem with them asking 4-year-olds whether you want to be a boy or a girl. Guys with the hardware going into the women's locker room. The guys with the hardware winning the swim meets against the girls. I got a problem with that. Now, if you're willing to cut everything off and become biologically, I suppose, God bless you, have fun. But generally, I'm against men who are born male competing against women in sports. But like I say, if you're going to castrate yourself and change yourself physically into a woman and take the hormones, it's a hard one to say no to. It's almost like, here's your reward. Go run your race,
Okay, we have time for one more question. Go ahead.
This is directed to Miss. This is directed to Miss Chase. I want to understand your reasoning behind your decision, because as an athlete, I was an athlete all throughout my school, from knee high to whatever. I've always been playing sports. So I want to understand where you're coming from in how you believe that it's fair, and how you think that you don't have an advantage over me with testosterone in your body and being physically bigger and more built for a competitive sport.
I like your questions, very direct. Thank you. Now, when I was a man, I ran 7 marathons. I ran a Goofy down at Disneyland, or Disney World, 39.3 miles in 2 days. I was running with women. A lot of women beat me. I finished, I got my medal, but now that I'm a woman, I believe, because of my testosterone level being dramatically dropped to women's levels, and my estrogen level being higher as a normal woman, I would not have a competitive advantage over you.
In schools, though, at the level of puberty, those children for sure have an advantage over me, and especially because they're at the height of and peak of their testosterone levels in their life. And that's not to say that there aren't, if I were to swim against Michael Phelps or Katie Ledecky, she's for sure going to beat me because she is a well-trained athlete. That is not to say that you wouldn't have an advantage over somebody who doesn't if you weren't competing as fairly in the race of somebody amongst your own gender.
If I could just add something, not an opinion, I think this is a very interesting discussion, and I respect everybody's opinions, but I just want to give a fact. Leah Thomas was ranked 443rd in the country as a man, and now she's winning everything as a woman. So to what you're talking about, I just wanted to give that fact out there, and maybe you can speak to that.
Thank you so much for that. And yeah, sure. and I definitely know exactly what you're talking about. I pay attention to it because I swam in high school. So I would like to understand you fully in order to formulate an opinion.
I believe that biological changes in a body, whether it's a boy or a girl at age 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, everyone is going to be a bit different. And there are some girls out there that are a whole lot better athletes than some guys. Even though the male may have more testosterone in their body, they may be conceived to have an advantage. They really don't. I'm just saying, it's not about winning or losing. It's about everybody getting a chance to be who they are and to be a chance to compete in a sport they love.
You mean to tell me that the individual that lost was 443rd?
443rd
in their male race and is now at the top of the women's category does not have an advantage. Is that what I'm hearing correctly?
I am saying I don't know all the biological information of this particular person. Maybe, just maybe, they didn't go through a normal transition of taking hormones and estrogen reducers.
He did not take she did not go through the entire process. So you are right about that.
Now, in that situation, no.
But in schools, children are not going to be taking the proper procedures to be going through this entire process the proper way. So therefore, what you said earlier, you just contradicted yourself. That's incorrect.
I'm saying that everyone should have a chance to compete.
No.
But in the case of the person you're talking about, that person squarely has an advantage. It's a case-by-case situation. And I just know from my personal situation, if I tried to go out and run a marathon today, which I couldn't, I only ride the exercise bike now, but if I could, no matter what condition, what have I done to my body, I'm still going to be getting beaten by women who run faster than I am. They're taller than me. They have longer legs. And they're more experienced runners.
Thank you so much.
I'm not going to
Thank you so much.
hold that against them.
Good discussion. Okay, this is the part now where we are going to have 1 minute for each candidate, telling people why they should vote for you. So this will be your closing statement for all three candidates up here right now. Go right ahead.
Everybody, I want to thank you for this opportunity to be here today. Whether you know it or not, I'm a first-time candidate. Now, I might have shown it to you today. And if I showed that to you, that's the way it is. But I have a big heart. And being a veteran of the Air Force, I believe that veterans need to be treated better in this state than they are. Homelessness, mental illness, physical disability is harming a lot of veterans every day. My family is full of veterans. World War II, Vietnam, and myself. All I can say to you is that you may not have liked all my answers, but they were honest. I'm an honest individual. Thank you for the time to be here, and I'll be proud to be Lieutenant Governor should I be elected this year. Thank you.
Before I go to the other two candidates, Mac Miller is not here today, so speaking on his behalf, she's going to read a statement. Natalie Thomas, go right ahead.
Hello, my name's Natalie Thomas. I'm going to read a statement from Mac Miller. Mr. Sanson, thank you for providing me an opportunity to interview and to be considered in receiving your organization's endorsement. Unfortunately, due to unreconcilable differences with an executive at Ahern and Convention Center, Freedom Hotel, I am unable to be present in person. As stated previously, I can attend virtually or by telephone or at any other location. However, understanding that it would only be fair to have the same accommodations be offered to all candidates in this 2022 Lieutenant Governor's race, and because of the last-minute disagreement with Ahern and Convention Center, Freedom Hotel executive, this is not possible. Considering this above-mentioned revelations, and that neither your endorsement committee or the citizens of Nevada will have an opportunity to see or hear from all of the candidates in this process, our team respectfully asks that veterans in politics refrain from offering their endorsement to either candidate. Respectfully, Mac Miller, running for Lieutenant Governor.
Sign. For the record, Mr. Miller is allowed at my radio station. He came in last week. He's a nice guy. Anyway, okay, so now let's go to Mr. Anthony. You're next. Go right ahead.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I just want to thank all of you for taking the time and volunteering to be here all day. I'm sure Steve is not paying you a lot of money to do this. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. All I can really tell you about is my character and my experience. My character speaks for itself. 29 years with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. I've been vetted a bunch of times in other offices, and I'm still standing. And I'm still here, even though the last election was a little brutal, but that's history. And again, all I can tell you is the reason I'm running for lieutenant governor is because I have experience in every single category that no other candidate has. I have experience in tourism, transportation, homeland security, supporting small businesses, and president of the Senate. I'm currently the mayor pro tem for the city of Las Vegas, so I run our city council meetings. So if you're looking for somebody that can hit the ground running on day one as your next lieutenant governor, I'm the guy, and I appreciate you considering me, and I'd be honored to have the Veterans in Politics endorsement. Thank you.
I think I'll stand up.
First of all, I want to thank you all for having me in here. When you talk about experience for the job, I've spent 50 years in hotels, restaurants, hospitality, entertainment, and tourism as CEO or boots on the ground. So you can probably take everybody in Carson City and put them together, and I have more experience in the areas that the lieutenant governor needs to know. Now we're first in voter fraud and we're last in education. I think it's time for a change. As far as the veterans, we need to do a better job. We've got 42,000 veteran homes that can't afford to pay their rent. We've got over 1,000 homeless. I'd like to see that every veteran who serves us 4 years gets Medicare for life. That's it. We have 70,000 people, 70 million people on Medicare, only 10 million veterans over the age of 22. It's not a big deal. We just need to take some money away from Pelosi and spread it around in the right places. So I can guarantee I'm an honorable person. I'm a family man. I'm a conservative. I'm not a politician, and I'll never lie to you. God bless you all.
Candidates, thank you very much. Appreciate it.